Hello and welcome to another edition of Workforce Watercooler. I'm Leslie, and joining me we have John and Brian, and we are excited to have you joining us today. We are going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, nonverbal communication. So what does nonverbal have to do with the workplace, you might ask? It has a lot to do with the workplace. Depending on where you look, experts say anywhere from 70 to 90% of our takeaway from any interaction comes from nonverbal communication. So when you look at those numbers, even on the low end of 70%, you really need to have your act together when it comes to nonverbal. So starting off, I would like to hear about your nonverbal pet peeves, your biggest nonverbal pet peeves. Just pick one. Mine is, if you've ever noticed people who, when you're talking, it's like they're anticipating what you're going to say, and they're moving their mouth, trying to say what you're about to say. Do you all know what I'm talking about? Am I the only person who has experienced this?
No, I'm probably guilty of it. Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay. Yeah, it's like, okay, John, you do it while I'm explaining this to Brian. So Brian, watch John's face. So it's like when you're talking, people, John, do it with your mouth. So it's like when people are talking,
Mm-hmm.
the other person is moving their mouth like they're about to say the
Something.
word
Yes.
that we're not quite there, but that's close. That's close. So it is very subtle, but it is enough to really throw me off. It's sort of like hearing an echo when you're trying to talk. It's that kind of thing. But A for effort, John.
That wasn't a great effort, but you know what it is? It's people that they want to reply before they fully listen. I mean, that's the
right.
That's what's happening there.
And they're getting their mouth primed, but they're actually, like if you're trying to say that man is nice, they're forming the words that are about to come out of your mouth. It just sends me over the edge. So John, yours that you showed a moment ago?
Yes. Did you say something?
So why does this bug you?
Because they're not paying attention to you. They're paying more attention to their device, right? I mean, that's just poor etiquette.
Mm-hmm. And it is not only a mental barrier to communication, it is a physical barrier to communication because it disrupts the natural flow of conversation. So absolutely. Yeah. Brian, what about you?
No, I would agree. I think that's going to be mine too, because if you think about it in real life, or as my kids say, IRL, then you have, do we allow ourselves to be that squirrely where somebody just starts a conversation in the middle of another one going on in the room and we just turn and give them our attention, right? Like, people kind of whisper, they try to be discreet, but to me, looking at your phone is the equivalent of just about facing and just looking somebody in the eye and having a back and forth with them and then giving your contact, your attention
yes.
back to the room speaker or the meeting speaker or whoever you're with. So yeah, we don't allow ourselves to do that. If somebody came at our door or walked by in the workplace, we might say, hold on just a second, right? You need to kind of indicate something, but a phone all of a sudden just grabs your instant attention and focus. So
absolutely.
It's tough.
And it is becoming more and more prevalent these days. Absolutely.
I think it's been there for a good 15 years or better. Yeah. I remember being in meetings where people would do that, and it's like, do you know how much time I put in the effort to get this meeting ready, this presentation, and yeah.
Oh yeah, I actually was doing a big presentation. Okay. I'm doing a big presentation, and a guy on the front row, it was nonstop. Did not look up once, and it was all I could do to just, stop and call him out. I did sort of call him out in a friendly, joking way, because it was becoming so distracting. I was going to crash and burn right there.
Yeah.
So nonverbal.
It requires a lot of discipline to not look at that phone.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
my phone just buzzed and I glanced down. I mean, and then I caught myself, right? I mean,
Well, and it's something we've got to be conscious of. I mean, put it away. Do not bring it into the room with you. I think if it's something where you get a call and it's like an emergency kind of situation, it's just like you said, Brian, hang on, I have something going on. I apologize, and get out of the room. That to me is much less of a distraction than trying to sneak and, do it during a meeting.
I do think that one, though, is one of those things where you recognize it in other people before you recognize it in yourself, right? You always know when you go to place your food order who's, you're in person somewhere, who's down looking at their phone when they should be looking up, looking at you,
Yes.
saying, how can I help you? Anywhere where there's like a transactional or retail thing, you always get bothered, but for that person, you have no idea, what the message is that they're getting, but we're allowing ourselves to be reached all the time. But I would imagine other companies where you're not allowed to have your phone on you or on your person. I mean, our kids aren't allowed to have it at school for obvious reasons, right?
Right.
But I mean, it makes a lot of sense that sometimes you just have to acknowledge it does take your focus away, but you don't get to see that happen to yourself. You see it happen when it's somebody else is involved, and then you
Right.
see how it bothers you.
Now, I will throw this out to you, but I think they're two different things. I have my master's in communication. It's something that I still read on constantly because to me, it's fascinating. Studies have shown over and over and over that if someone is doodling on their paper, like during a meeting, if someone has something, not a phone, but if someone has something just that they're fidgeting with, that actually helps them focus more on the message. And I don't know the exact mechanism in the brain, but it's sort of quieting those other voices in your mind, like, oh, I'm hungry, oh, whatever distraction it might be. So, but I think absolutely the phone is different than just, drawing little swirlies on your paper or, fiddling with something. Like those fidget spinners for kids. It helps them focus, and it helps adults focus. So with meetings, and I think we've talked about some biggies with using a phone during a meeting. What other things do you notice happening in meetings, whether they're positive or negative, non-verbally?
well, I mean, it kind of goes to Brian's analogy a minute ago. It's the sidebar conversations when somebody's speaking and other people are interrupting, kind of having their own conversations. I mean, that's a pet peeve of mine. I pick up on that right away.
Yeah, Leslie, you and I have had some, like with these virtual meetings, right? When you put something in the chat, you can kind of tell when people are trying to hold back, and other people don't hold back as well. They just start smiling, and you're like, something's going on. You see two people in the same meeting, and they're both reacting to stuff.
Right.
So, yeah.
And I guilty as charged. I will admit I have done that. One thing I think it's important to know with with meetings, and this is in any kind of interaction at all, it's important to note that anytime you cross any part of your body, crossing your legs, crossing your arms, any sort of folding, that communicates disagreement or negativity. So my comfort sitting pose is with my legs crossed. If it is like a super duper important meeting, I try to be very conscious of having my legs uncrossed. And it's something that, people won't really pick up on at the forefront of their mind. But if you ask them after the fact who agreed with you and who disagreed with you, they're going to pick out the people who had open postures. Anytime we're open, that communicates agreement, or at least you're open to ideas. And John is doing something awesome right now, and this was not planned. I did not send him a chat message to do this, but if you're in a meeting, if you're in a job interview, the best way to communicate interest is to lean forward. Mm-hmm. So John is leaning forward, and hands at the mouth, that is, you have my full attention. I am not going to say anything. So John, I did not ask you to do that, but that was a perfect illustration.
He's not praying that the meeting gets done soon. Like, finish up.
He very well may be.
Listen, I like on Zoom meetings like this, or these types of calls, I try to lean in. Yeah, but kind of conversely, going back to kind of this topic, if I shut my camera off so that I can do other things, I mean, that is a nonverbal, like, I'm here, but I'm not really. I'm here and I'm maybe listening, but yes. I might not be. But I'm going to turn my camera off so you can't see me work on other things. And I've definitely been guilty of that before.
Yeah, I almost said that as my biggest pet peeve. I don't know that it's a big pet peeve, because for some people it's truly their internet signal, and mine has been, is crappy. But it does make you wonder.
Yeah, it does. And well, I'll admit that's usually not my internet signal. It's usually I'm getting invited to a bazillion meetings, and instead of saying no, I say yes, but then I'll turn my camera off and do other things, and that's not good on my part, because I'm not giving whoever called the meeting my full attention.
And I think, again, with anything nonverbal, it's worth saying it may not be your intention, but this is how these things are perceived. Mm-hmm. So when your camera is off, even though you are so focused, you want to take notes, and you are listening, and this is the most fascinating meeting you've ever been to in your life. If your camera is off, all the other participants are thinking you are not in this. That is the perception. Perception is not always the reality, but perception is extremely important when it comes to the workplace. Let's see.
Leslie, I finally know why your eyes cross suddenly in the middle of meetings now. And you're just, nothing else is crossing, so eventually your eyes just, Now I know why. Something's got to cross.
That's right. No. That's right.
Sorry, go ahead.
One other thing I wanted to throw out, and again, this goes along with, actually, there's two things. I don't know how we are on time. Okay. One thing that I think is extremely important to mention is the idea of personal space. And personal space is different as far as comfort levels. Personal space is different among different cultures. And Americans, overall, we have the largest bubble. We want people at arm's length. Other cultures are not like that. Other cultures, it is showing respect, it is showing interest if they move in closer. And I think we need to recognize that, because sometimes if you're dealing with someone from another culture, you may take offense at them invading your personal space, but they're really wanting to show, hey, I'm interested in this conversation. Thoughts on that?
Except if you're standing in line somewhere.
Yes.
If you're not turning towards each other and people are close to you, then that's, like, I've had to really raise my eyebrow a few times here in the last 2 years and be like, seriously? Like, I'm in line and my elbow trying to swipe my card is hitting you. Like, why are you so close to me? Like, come on.
Well,
But that's not necessarily a workplace situation, but.
Right. Well, here in those kinds of situations, what I do, my tip is I try to take up as much space physically as possible. And I mean, I don't, make a big deal about it, but I start, putting my hands on my hips and, I am trying to non-verbally tell these people to back off by taking up more space myself.
John, how do you deal with
being
that?
gassy also works.
Yeah.
Just
Oh, gosh.
Fake noises from the mouth. Yeah.
Leslie, you wanted a soundbite, right? So there you go.
Yes. Yeah, thank you, John. Thank you. Yes,
Well,
absolutely.
no, I've had the great fortune to be kind of being a veteran and being all over the world to experience different cultures. But you're exactly right, and you just have to just be cognizant of it. I mean, in some cultures you're going to be greeted with a kiss,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just how it is, and
Yeah, you got to keep that straight. I'll tell you a quick story. So my wife is half, Venezuelan, half Iranian. So in the Latino culture, it's customary to come up and do the little on the cheek or side, cheek to cheek thing, male and female. You don't see that as much with men, but in the Iranian culture, they do it, like men to men, women to men, and they do it twice.
Yeah.
So I accidentally did it twice to one of my wife's Venezuelan friends, and I remember after that second one, she was a little bit like this, and I was like, crap, I just got that confused.
One too many, Brian. One too many.
I haven't made that mistake again.
So when you say twice, are you saying each cheek?
Yeah.
Okay.
I gave her the Iranian greeting, but she was not Iranian, and she received it about as well as any of you would receive it if I did it. So. Yeah.
Well, again, culture is extremely important. And if your workplace has a diverse culture, it is worth, looking into this somewhat, because you may think, oh, this person is a jerk because he's always up in my face. No, this is a difference in culture. It's not, that individual. And my last topic I want to throw out to you guys is on office setup. What do you picture a standard office setup to look like? One person in an office, what's the typical setup?
Door open.
Okay, furniture wise.
Oh.
Yeah.
You got a desk.
Basically putting a desk between the door and the person that owns the office, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. So most people picture a desk, someone behind a desk, and a chair in front of the desk. Study after study has shown that that is not ideal. And here's the reason why. If you have a desk, which serves as a barrier, just like this, between two people, that already sets you up for a negative interaction. People also associate someone behind a desk and a chair in front of the desk with, like, back in school, going to the principal's office. This is I'm in trouble kind of thing. So research shows that the best setup to promote conversation is, if you have a desk and you're sitting behind the desk, put a chair to the side, so that it's more of a side conversation, or like both of you guys have tables in your room, move the conversation to the table where it's more equal footing. And that to me, that kind of stuff to me is fascinating. We don't think about how our office is set up as being a form of nonverbal communication, but it absolutely is.
See, I thought you were going to say you have to have a tropical plant in the back corner.
Yes.
The most inviting environment.
Yes. And a fake one so it won't die. Because, if your office is filled with tropical plants that are all dying, that says something about you too. Right. But I could go on and on about nonverbal. I think it is, the more you can learn about it, the better off you'll be in any kind of workplace interactions. Any last questions? If there's something you're curious about with nonverbal?
Get back to you.
No, I mean, I wasn't, Leslie. I mean, you pitched this idea and said, hey, we're going to talk about nonverbal. You guys don't prepare anything. So I was a little curious what we're going to do, but I think this has been a pretty interesting conversation. I mean, you're touching on a lot of kind of really relevant workplace culture topics.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Faux pas.
Yes. And, a lot of times people think nonverbal is just body language. It is body language, but it's so much more. It's anything to which another person assigns meaning. So, if I walk into your office and the walls are painted bright purple, I'm going to assign meaning to that. I'm going to automatically start thinking, this is a little unusual. If you have some odd decorations in your office, same thing. And it's the same thing with our personal adornments. If someone has some strange hairdo, that's going to cause a distraction, in our communication.
Is this coming from personal experience?
Yes, in the 80s, I was guilty of many a distracting hairdo.
I'll tell you one other quick one. Yeah, I'll tell you one other quick one that I think is good is saying hello to people and acknowledging them, right? So I've worked at places like factory floors, or it was a warehouse actually, and you just have those people that'll always say hi. I've worked in office environments where people, not here, where people come in and they just go straight to their area, and they might say later, I'm not a morning person, so they don't feel like they need to say hi or be chirpy or whatever. But anytime you walk into a space and people are talking and they don't look at you, or they look at you and don't say, those are all those awkward kind of nonverbal, communication things I think that are common to every workplace. So I think it's important to just say hi, even if that other person doesn't reciprocate. They at least can't accuse you of, they don't say anything when I walk by.
Right.
So,
absolutely.
Well,
and we haven't even talked about resting faces, right, Leslie? That's a whole other maybe water cooler. Talk about resting faces. So.
Oh gosh.
As we know, I have really bad resting face. Really bad. And I try to be very conscious of it. But man, let me tell you, when I'm editing these episodes and I hit pause, I cringe every time, because here's my face. that's what it looks like. And I'm like, oh, I promise I'm nice. I promise I don't grimace 100 times a day. But apparently it happens. But yeah.
If you see Leslie in public and you go up to her and say, Leslie, are you doing okay? And she just puts her arms out like that, and then just leave her alone. She's needing more space. She's thinking about other things not having to be crossed up. And
that's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
Get out of my personal space.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Do you ever put a cape on while you do that? Do you ever do the pose where?
If I had one, I guess I need to invest in a cape.
Yeah, a cape might keep.
I would like flipping it. I'd like flipping a cape just to do it. That'd be awesome.
So Leslie, don't answer this, but Brian likes to stand around the office in the Captain Morgan stance, and I don't know what that means from a nonverbal communication standpoint. We can talk about that offline, though.
Okay, yeah. Let's end with that. Hey, if you have a theory on why Brian does that,
and why does he always clear his throat when he's doing it?
It might involve a rash, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. Sometimes you just gotta get it, walk it off.
That's right. All right. Well, thank you all for indulging in one of my favorite topics. I could go on and on and on for a long time, but you know, we got things to do.
I got to start moving my desk, so yeah. Get somebody else to do this.
Yeah, that sounds good. All right. Thank you guys as always. I appreciate it. To all our viewers, please join us next time for another rousing edition of Workforce Watercooler. Thanks again.
Like and subscribe.